Part 3. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 21. Chapter 21 Guests Leave. It was already dark when we returned to the small villa. Fortunately, the delicacies prepared long ago greatly soothed everyone's tired bodies and minds. Zhang Lingzi glanced at Lin Suifei opposite, who was a little unable to eat, and ate an extra bowl of rice in a good mood. Zhao Hongsheng came to the villa after everyone had eaten. After sitting down, he directly talked about the next arrangements. The program team's car will take everyone to the high-speed rail station tomorrow morning, but Zhang Lingzi has to wait a moment. You have a public service video to shoot, but it won't take long time, I guess it's about 1 day, and you can go with the program team then. Zhang Lingzi nodded and said hello. She had no intention of leaving early. She still remembered that there was an old doctor in the village. Lin Suifei couldn't listen anymore and simply stood up. I shouldn't have anything to do then. I'm a little tired, so I'll go back to the house to rest. Zhao Hongsheng glanced at her and said, remember to get up early tomorrow. It's best to pack your luggage tonight. The program team's car leaves early, otherwise you will miss the departure time when you get to the high-speed rail station. Lin Suifei paused. I understand. Zhao Hongsheng withdrew his gaze and looked at Zhang Lingzi again. At this moment, anyone with a discerning eye can see that Lin Suifei is a little uncomfortable, and as for the reason, they can also guess pretty well. It's just that Zhang Lingzi's comeback suppressed Lin Suifei, who was originally doing pretty well. In the past 3 days of recording, there were not even a few highlights. Even Zhao Hongsheng himself did not expect that Zhang Lingzi would be the one left at the end. I thought it would be a waste to come back again, but it gave him several surprises. This big reversal also made him secretly happy several times. He is a director, and if the guests perform well, he will naturally benefit from it. That's all I have to say. Everyone is tired today. Go to bed early. We will have the opportunity to cooperate again. Zhao Hongsheng walked forward, Lu Zhengzheng looked for her on the back, and Zhang Lingzi took her into her bedroom. Seeing that this girl rolled up her sleeves and started packing her luggage as soon as she entered the house, Zhang Lingzi paused before going into the bathroom to wash up. We don't need to be in such a hurry. Lu Zhengzheng waved his hand. It's okay, Sister Zixi. I've been very busy these days and my hands are itchy. Go wash up quickly. I'll clean it up soon. The living conditions in small mountain villages are definitely not as good as those in big cities. During previous recordings, Zhang Lingzi would tell her to buy something whenever she felt it was lacking, even if she had to go to a town more than 10 miles away to buy what she needed. But this time when he came back to record, Lu Zhengzheng felt a little nostalgic for the previous days. It's really too idle. Other assistants occasionally buy things for their artists, tidy up the room when the camera is off, and assist the artists with body care and makeup. But in the past 3 days, apart from helping deliver water and stuff, she has only done basically there is no other life. This made her wonder if she was a masochist. Otherwise, why are you not used to having a good and free time? When Zhang Lingzi came out of the bathroom, she saw that the suitcase in the bedroom had been packed, leaving only some skincare products and clothes for tomorrow. A familiar voice came from Lu Zhengzhen's cell phone. Sister Tong. Tong Yu's joyful laughter without any concealment came from the phone's microphone. Gang Zhengzheng told me that you got the spot of the local public welfare ambassador that the program team fought for with a photo. Zioxy, I can do it this time. I'm really impressed by you. Zhang Lingzi wiped her hair and sat across from the phone, looking down at the agent who was beaming on the screen. Then there should be many more opportunities like this in the future. Ah, Tong Yu was stunned when she heard this. It took her 2 seconds to realize what she meant, and her face became serious again. Don't be too proud of me. I can't just praise you for a few words and then get carried away. Zhang Lingzi smiled helplessly. What she said was true, but the two people present had disbelief in their eyes. "It's getting late, Sister Tong, please go to bed early." "Okay, remember to tell me in advance after booking the flight, and I will ask the driver to pick you up at the airport." "Okay." After hanging up the video and watching Lu Zhengzheng leave, Zhang Lingzi raised her hand and rubbed her arm, which had already begun to ache. She has never been used to showing weakness in front of others. "It wasn't until the soreness eased a little that I fell asleep." The next day, as soon as the roosters in the village began to crow, the little villa became lively. Zhang Lingzi put on her sportswear and went out, and saw Shi Man, Suyan and other assistants busy moving their luggage. Through the window, you can see an extended business van with the program sponsor's logo parked in the yard outside. Suyan followed her assistant and squinted her eyes and yawned. When she opened her eyes, she saw Zhang Lingzi making way in front of her. His eyes fell on the sportswear she was wearing. "Xiao 11, why are you getting up so early?" They had to get up early to prepare for the journey. Didn't Zhang Lingzi have to stay and shoot the promotional video? "Go out for a run." "Run?" Suyan raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to give a thumbs up. Let her get up early for a run, why not kill her? First it was Suyin, then Shiman, and then Lin Suifei. The two people in front saw Zhang Lingzi, managed to say a few words in front of everyone, and said goodbye with a smile. Regardless of whether it was sincere or not, at least the parting scene was beautifully done. However, when she arrived at Lin Suifei's place, she thought that the cameras that were always around her were gone. When she walked to Zhang Lingzi, she didn't stop, she didn't even look at her, and she got into the car without looking sideways. After sitting on her seat, she pretended to look out through the car glass accidentally, and saw Zhang Lingzi standing there calmly warming up. She was not affected by her coldness just now, and she couldn't help but feel depressed again. The last person to come out was Zhang Kaiwan, who was yawning profusely. He was almost dragged out by his assistant. Zhang Lingzi had finished warming up and was about to start running. When she saw Zhang Kaiwan walking in front of her, he suddenly stopped and looked like he had something to say, and did not take a step forward. Zhang Kaiwan raised his hand to wipe the tears from the corner of his eyes due to continuous yawning. "Teacher Zhang, goodbye." "No, see you next time." "See you next time." "Haha, you'll know when the time comes I'm leaving, no need to send me goodbye." Zhang Kaiwan was in a good mood and gave it up. He turned around and got into the business car waiting for him. Zhang Lingzi stood there and watched the car drive away, silently starting her morning run. As for the puzzle Zhang Kaiwan left for her before leaving, she will know it when they meet again. The morning run was over, and Lu Zhengzheng just arrived with breakfast. As soon as the two of them had breakfast, Zhao Hongsheng hurried to the door and saw Zhang Lingzi, who was about to sit on the sofa. He waved, "Teacher Zhang, the pickup car will be here soon. Let's leave now." Zhang Lingzi had no choice but to stand up straight again. "Director Zhao, are you going too?" "Of course, you two little girls are unfamiliar with the place. How can I rest assured if I don't follow you? Then I'll trouble Director Zhao today." "You're welcome. Have you packed up?" "I'll leave after packing." "Let's go." After coming out of the villa, the three of them waited at the gate for a few minutes when they saw a silver gray van driving over. As the car got closer and closer, the three of them saw clearly that the original color of the van was not silver gray but silver. It was just that the body had not been cleaned for an unknown period of time, so it was directly changed to a different color. Lu Zhengzheng couldn't help but his face darkened, and even Zhao Hongsheng covered his mouth and coughed twice. When the car stopped and the driver got off, the first thing he asked was, "Brother, are you sure you are here to pick up our guests to shoot a promotional video? Are you serious about driving a car like this?" End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 22. Chapter 22. I don't know. I'm really sorry, The driver's dark and honest face was full of apologies. Our leader went to the countryside yesterday. The villages there have not built roads and all are dirt roads. This time and again, the car has become like this. I'm in a hurry and didn't have time to clean it, but everything in this carriage is clean. It's okay, let's get in the car first. Zhang Lingzi said and gestured to Lu Zhengzheng, who was still frowning. Lu Zhengzheng pursed her lips and opened the carriage door. When she saw that the inside was indeed clean, her brows relaxed. Zhang Lingzi bent over and got into the car. After sitting on the somewhat hard seat, she could clearly feel the difference between this car and other cars she had sat in before. It seems that there are differences between cars. It was probably the difference between luxury carriages and simple carriages in the past. She had paid private visits incognito in her previous life, more than once, and sometimes the conditions were not good. Not to mention simple carriages, she had also ridden in ox carts and donkey carts. Each one has a different experience. The van turned a corner and bumped back toward the road it came from. After driving for about an hour, they arrived at a town that was quite prosperous compared to a small mountain village. The car finally stopped in front of a two-story white building. Zhang Lingzi got off the car and glanced at the large red characters next to the small white building, Juxi Township Office. After the driver got off, he led them to the small building, took out his mobile phone and glanced at the message he had just received, and explained, 3 teachers, let's go to the reception room to take a rest first. Our leader is seeing off a distinguished guest. Very soon. Come here soon. Lu Zhengzheng followed Zhang Lingzi and suddenly let out a light sigh while walking. What's wrong? Lu Zhengzheng reached out and pointed to the intersection not far to the right. Sister Zixi, there is a luxury car over there. Zhang Lingzi paused and looked in the direction of Lu Zhengzheng's finger. She originally had no idea about luxury cars, but the car that amazed her the most so far was the high-speed train she took when she came here. But at this moment, looking at the low-key pure black car not far away, it obviously looks similar to other cars in appearance, but when you look at it, it makes people feel noble and stable. So it turns out that this is called a luxury car. I didn't expect to see such a luxury car in such a remote town, Lu Zhengzheng exclaimed. This is the first time I have seen this car in real life. This is a great experience. Moreover, I didn't see it in the imperial capital, but in this remote town. Zhang Lingzi patted her shoulder and said, let's go. No matter how luxurious the car is, it doesn't belong to them. Just take a look at it from a distance. Asterisk. At the intersection. Zhu opened the rear door of the car and stood there quietly waiting for his boss to shake hands with the person in charge of Juxi Township and say goodbye. Thank you very much Mr. Shen for supporting the construction of our Juxi Township. On behalf of all the folks in Juxi Township, I would like to thank Mr. Shen again. You are serious about your words. Originally I wanted to stay with you for a casual meal, but since Mr. Shen has important matters to deal with, I can only wish Mr. Shen a safe journey back to Beijing. Thank you very much, Mr. Hao, please stay. Shen Yunqing let go of the hand that was held enthusiastically, took it back to his side, nodded slightly to the middle-aged man in front of him, turned around and walked towards the car. Upon seeing this, Zhu quickly put his hand on the car door, waiting for his boss to get in the car and close the door. However, when he was less than 1 meter away from the car, he suddenly stopped and turned his head to look in one direction. He quickly followed and looked over, just in time to see a group of people entering the small building of the Juxi Township office not far away. Boss, do you know anyone? Would you like to say hello? Shen Yunqing watched the inexplicably familiar figure enter the small white building, then looked away, and subconsciously touched the string of red sandalwood beads on his wrist. No, let's go. The car door closed silently, and the black car quickly and quietly drove away from the place. Asterisk. I'm sorry for keeping these distinguished guests waiting for so long. Slightly hasty footsteps accompanied by the sound of apology came from the door of the reception room. Zhang Lingzi put down the disposable paper cup in her hand and raised her eyes to look at the visitor. The man is in his 30s or 40s. His face is straight and his temples are a little gray. His aura is steady and has a hint of military aura. He is wearing a slightly old but neat suit, simple and crisp. The driver who picked them up was following behind the middle-aged man. She stood up and was sure at a glance that this was the person who called the shots here. The driver and secretary spoke from the side. Director Zhao, Teacher Zhang, and this Miss Liu, this is our township chief Hao. Hao Xingzhou, thank you for coming over so early in the morning to help us shoot the promotional video. As Hao Xingzhou spoke, his eyes had already fallen on Zhang Lingzi, and his eyes lit up. There is no need to tell, this girl should be their public welfare ambassador of Juxi Township. The appearance is more eye-catching than he imagined. When the promotional video is released, more people will be willing to pay more attention to Juxi Township. Zhao Hongsheng watched from the sidelines, guessing that the mayor Hao didn't know about Zhang Lingzi. If you knew, you would have definitely heard of Zhang Lingzi's reputation on the internet. This would at least give you a more careful attitude, instead of just a look of surprise now. He was relieved in his heart. God knows the identity of this publicity ambassador. He had thought that any one of Shiman and the others might be the one, but he never thought of Zhang Lingzi. The other person who also saw that the mayor Hao in front of him did not recognize Zhang Lingzi was Lu Zhengzheng. On the one hand, I am depressed because my artist is not famous enough, but on the other hand, I am relieved. What if the other party knew about Sister Xixi's reputation on the internet and refused to let Sister Xixi serve as the publicity ambassador? It would be really shameful. Zhang Lingzi soon discovered that the character of the mayor Hao was quite in line with her preferences. Not polite or hypocritical, or rather disdainful of such, but more practical, so the conversation quickly got to the point. The publicity department of our office originally had 2 employees, one was planning and the other was responsible for shooting. However, Sister Wang, who was in charge of planning, went home to give birth, so I took over the planning. Teacher Zhang, I think we just shoot like this. Juxi Township is located in a remote location. Although it has unique scenery and is rich in several kinds of delicious fruits, the people's lives can still only ensure food and clothing. Hao Xingzhou has been thinking of ways to make the lives of his fellow villagers better since he returned to his hometown after retiring from the army and joined the township office. This time he thought of inviting celebrities to help shoot promotional videos for his hometown, which was also a bold attempt for him. So when he learned that someone in the entertainment industry was recording a program within his jurisdiction, he immediately tried to contact him, and almost hit it off with Zhao Hongsheng, who had originally planned to promote the small mountain village. Hence this cooperation. Zhang Lingzi listened carefully. She could tell that although Chief Hao was not specifically responsible for planning, he had indeed put in a lot of effort for this promotional video. On the other hand, Lu Zhengzheng, who was listening by the side, hesitated to speak. Originally, she thought it would take about a day to shoot this promotional video. Generally, this type of promotional video only takes a few minutes to edit. But according to Mayor Hao's plan, it's obvious that there's not enough time to complete the shooting in this day. Let alone one day, I think 3 days will be enough. So when the other party said he was tired and stopped to drink water, I wanted to remind him that his artist couldn't spare so much time, and according to the plan, he had to walk up and down the mountain, which was too tiring and energy-consuming. However, before she could say anything, a look from Zhang Lingzi opposite her made her swallow her words back immediately. Then I heard a familiar voice reply, "There's no problem with me." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, X Press 11. Chapter 23. Chapter 23 Gain a Fan. Hao Seung-jo also knew that his shooting plan was a bit embarrassing, but he really wanted to shoot as many things as possible in this limited opportunity, and he was prepared to be refuted after he finished speaking. Until he heard the Miss Jong in front of him agreed without hesitation, he was even stunned for a moment, and then grinned broadly, "Thank you for your hard work, Miss Jong. You three continue to sit, I'll go and take care of this time the person in charge of filming is called over, and we will get to know each other later." When he walked out, Lu Zhengzheng closed the door of the reception room with his back, and then complained softly, "Sister Zixi, this Mayor Hao caught you trying to pluck the wool, why did you just agree?" Zhao Hongsheng touched his chin and nodded, "If we follow what Chief Hao said to shoot this promotional video, I'm afraid we won't be able to shoot it in one day." "Then stay a few more days." Zhang Lingzi was not moved by the words of the two men at all, and said firmly, "Don't worry, the time can be staggered." She knew it well before replying and would not delay participating in the survival variety show later. Hearing this, Zhao Hongsheng couldn't help but look at her deeply. The only benefit of this kind of public service announcement is that it can increase some visibility, and the tone is relatively positive. In his opinion, delaying it for one day is enough, and few people are willing to spend so much energy on it. "As long as you know what's going on, I can only stay for one day. I have to evacuate with the program team early tomorrow morning." Lu Zhengzheng panicked when she heard this. If this happened, wouldn't she and Sister Zixi be the only ones left in the next few days? Thinking of this, she quickly looked at Zhang Lingzi. Zhang Lingzi gave her a reassuring look, then met Zhao Hangshen's gaze, and smiled. "Director Zhao is accompanying us on this trip today because he doesn't trust us because we are obliged to come. Even if you have to come with me in the next few days, I don't agree either. Once the show team leaves, I'll live with Zhengzheng, don't worry, Director Zhao." Zhao Hongsheng felt comfortable hearing this. You can think of his kindness without causing embarrassment to him. What's more, these words came from Zhang Lingzi's mouth, which made him feel even more accomplished. This girl was known for her incompetence in the entertainment industry before, but she has changed so much after participating in his variety show. He, as a director, deserves some credit. "You two don't have to worry if you want to return to Beijing after filming. Mayor Hao will probably send you a car to take you to the high-speed rail station. In the past few days of filming, you two little girls had better not run around and go back to the village after filming. I rented the small villa in the village for a month and it hasn't expired yet. You can just stay here." As soon as Zhao Hongsheng finished speaking, the door of the reception room was pushed open again. Among the people who came in this time was a tall young man with a shaved head and a not-so-old video camera on his shoulder. The full-time photographer of our rural office, Yao Xiaotian. "Hello, are you Zhang Lingzi?" Lu Zhengzheng and Zhao Hangshen's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Chief Hao and his secretary did not know Zhang Lingzi, so they thought Zhang Lingzi's fame had not spread to this area. They did not expect that the photographer knew Zhang Lingzi. Hao Seung-jo thought his subordinate was a fan of Miss Zhang in front of him, so he smiled and nodded. "Xiaotian knows Miss Zhang, so that will be easy. The rest of the shooting will depend on you two." Yao Xiaotian looked like he was about to speak but couldn't help but take another look at the person standing quietly in front of him. As he looked at it, he couldn't help but feel a little more doubtful. He read online that Zhang Lingzi liked to act like a monster no matter what she did, and she also acted like a celebrity. She was late for filming and was uncooperative when appearing in variety shows. In short, she had no redeeming features except her face. When he was scrolling through his phone, he saw so many similar news and videos that he didn't know how many. He had always thought so. When he looked at Zhang Lingzi, he always separated her face from her character. But meeting him in real life now gave him a completely different feeling than what he said online. It's not that the face looks more beautiful in reality, but the whole person's temperament. There was no impetuousness at all, but a calm atmosphere, and there was even a faint feeling that he didn't dare to look directly at. Zhang Lingzi met Yao Xiaoshan's appraising gaze and nodded slightly. Yes, I am Zhang Lingzi. Then, it will be a pleasure to work together. As a photographer, he is confident that no one can escape his lens. Compared to the rumors on the internet, he was more willing to believe his own eyes at the moment. Then just look at the camera and see if the other person is pretending. A pleasure to work with. Zhao Hongsheng and Lu Zhengzheng both breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that this person did not directly mention Zhang Lingzi's bad reputation on the internet. As everyone knows, Yao Xiaotian did have a moment to remind his boss that the reputation of the star his boss had found was not very good, but when Zhang Lingzi looked over at him, he inexplicably did not dare to speak. This has contributed to the current situation where you are good, I am good and everyone is good. When I go out to shoot, I still ride in the same dusty van. The first stop we arrived was a school that looked newly built. It's school time, and you can hear the sound of reading loudly coming from the teaching building in the distance. There are also several classes taking physical education classes on the playground paved with rubber and fake turf. When looking for young actors to cooperate with the filming, Zhang Lingzi looked at the brand new campus in front of her and the laughing and joking children, and sighed in her heart. If she wants to see the peaceful and prosperous age, these are the most intuitive manifestations in front of her. Children can learn knowledge without any worries, without thinking about anything else, just hoping to become pillars of talent in the future. The young actors we hired were very well behaved and cooperative. Looking at the figure patiently accompanying the children under the camera, Yao Xiaotian couldn't help but calm down and stop thinking about the dirty stuff on the internet, and tried his best to capture every stunning moment. The filming was completed successfully after a while. When everyone started to leave, Yao Xiaotian looked back at the brand new teaching building and suddenly said with gratitude, "This school was newly built at the end of last year. The previous classrooms always leaked. I remember that when I was in school, the glass was broken, the room was dark, and the lights were very dim, so everyone had to bring a candle in their school bag for fear of hurting their eyes. Thanks to the support of kind-hearted people, we have such a good environment now." Lu Zhengzheng answered, "Will any kind-hearted person donate?" "Yes, there has been little income in the township, so it cannot allocate money to rebuild the school. If some kind people hadn't funded a large amount of money, the school would still be the same." Hearing this, Zhang Lingzi suddenly remembered the luxury car she saw at the intersection more than an hour ago. She remembered Lu Zhengzheng saying that the luxury car was rare even in the imperial capital, but now it appeared in such a remote town. Could the owner of the car be the kind person Yao Xiaotian said? The next day, the group of people sat in a van and traveled around the town and its surroundings, stopping from time to time to take pictures of the scenery and people. After the trip, not to mention Zhang Lingzi, even Lu Zhengzheng and Zhao Hongsheng, two people who felt they were in good physical condition, felt very tired. At the end of the day, Yao Xiaotian also completely changed his view of Zhang Lingzi. Not to mention taking pictures of scenery, you have to go up and down mountains, and going up and down slopes is a big test for your physical strength. But he didn't hear Zhang Lingzi cry out in pain during the whole process, saying she quit and didn't want to film anymore. There is also humanities. He watched Zhang Lingzi chatting with an old man sunbathing on the side of the road and chatting about home affairs. In the end, he almost got dragged by the old man to his house for lunch. Of course I didn't go, there were so many of them. Lunch was served at a small restaurant. The small restaurants in the town only serve home-cooked dishes, because there are not many customers and they are not very diligent in cleaning the floor. Even Lu Zhengzheng is afraid that Zhang Lingzi will dislike it. Zhang Lingzi calmly ate 2 bowls of rice as usual under the uneasy looks of the 3 people opposite her. Not to mention that the table was just a little dirty, she also ate steamed buns in the ruined temple when she had no conditions. Until the sunset, after taking the last scene, everyone breathed a long sigh of relief. It happened that the driver had no time, so after dinner, Yao Xiaotian volunteered to take Zhang Lingzi and the others back. After a day of getting along, Yao Xiaotian thought he was somewhat familiar with Zhang Lingzi. Halfway through the car, he couldn't help but ask, "I think teacher Zhang is very easy to get along with. Why are there so many slanderous statements about you on the internet?" Zhang Lingzi was sitting in the back seat with her eyes closed to relax, but she raised her eyes slightly after hearing this. Can she say that what is said on the internet is the truth? The truth is that it is actually a different person. Probably because she was silent for a long time, Yao Xiaotian hurriedly found a reason for himself. It must be because some people like to chase rumors and are jealous of teacher Zhang. Zhang Lingzi, Just say yes, she just doesn't want to answer. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 24. Chapter 24 is Beauty Weak and Harmless. It was already dark when we returned to the village, and the sound of cars caused a few dogs to bark. When we arrived at our residence, the originally brightly lit small villa was now dark. Thanks to Yao Xiaotian, who came specially to see him off, and then watched Zhao Hongsheng leave with his hands behind his back. Zhang Lingzi walked into the small villa with Lu Zhengzheng. After arriving in the living room, I turned on the lights first. The warm and bright light immediately dispelled the darkness just now. Lu Zhengzheng put the bag aside and slumped on the sofa without wanting to get up. "Sister Zixi, I'm so tired." Zhang Lingzi calmly took 2 bottles of sponsored juice from the cabinet on the side and threw 1 bottle over. "If you are tired, go to bed early. Remember to rub your feet and calves before going to bed. We will continue running tomorrow." Lu Zhengzheng nodded like he was pecking at rice. After taking a sip of juice, he took out his phone and was about to check the time when a video request popped up first. She slapped her forehead and said, "It's over, Sister Zixi, I forgot to tell Sister Tong that we will be 2 days late before leaving. In fact, I was walking around all day long, and Yao Xiaotian was the only one in charge of shooting. She had to help from time to time, and she was so busy that she forgot about the things she reported to Sister Tong. It's over, I have to be scolded by Sister Tong." Zhang Lingzi swallowed the juice in her mouth and opened her lips. "Take it." Lu Zhengzheng subconsciously clicked the connection button. Tong Yu's voice came over immediately. Her tone was a bit fiery. "If you listen carefully, I've been busy and I haven't heard a single message. Lu Zhengzheng, why didn't you send your flight information? What time will I arrange for the driver to pick you up tomorrow? Do you need me to remind you about such a simple thing?" Zhang Lingzi took the mobile phone from Lu Zhengzheng, who had shrunk her shoulders due to being scolded. "Sister Tong, it's not that Zhengzheng hasn't sent it, it's that we haven't booked a flight ticket yet." "I didn't book a flight. What's going on? The flight was cancelled or there are no seats." "This public service video will be filmed for another 2 days. If everything goes well, we will go back the day after tomorrow." Tong Yu suddenly frowned. "Isn't it just a public service announcement? It can only take a few minutes at most, so why does it take so long to shoot? There is a lot of material to be shot, and I agree. But the coaches I have found for you have been arranged. You will be delayed for 2 days now. What will happen to the surprise training then? Although the next variety show is not your strong point, wait, it seems that you have no strong points, but we can't completely mess it up. I've taken care of the training, and I won't mess it up." Okay, Tong Yu waved her hands and gave in reluctantly. "You've already agreed. What else can I say? Come back as soon as you finish filming. Got it? Good night, Sister Tong." Lu Zhengzheng held the phone that came back and frowned. "Sister Zixi, this time it was indeed delayed. You can train for 3 more days at most when you get back. The key is what can be accomplished in 3 days of training." Zhang Lingzi raised her chin towards her. "I know, go to sleep." Lu Zhengzheng stood up decisively and went to the bedroom obediently. Not long after, the lights in the villa dimmed again. At night, silence returned. Early the next morning, Zhang Lingzi got up as usual for a run. As soon as she went out, she saw the large vehicle of the program team parked on the roadside. The equipment seemed to have been installed. Zhao Hongsheng saw her figure and got out of the car. Not bad, I can still get up and run this early in the morning after running all day yesterday. Everyone is ready to leave. Well, Zhao Hongsheng nodded, paused, and then added, you are doing well as you are now, keep it up, and maybe we can work together again if we have the opportunity in the future. Zhang Lingzi's lips curled up slightly, okay. The beauty smiles, just like the morning dew waiting for the sunset, and it dazzles the eyes of many people around her. Such a beautiful scene could be seen early in the morning. Zhao Hongsheng returned to the car in a good mood after saying hello. Watching the bus leave, Zhang Lingzi stood there and simply warmed up and started running. While running this time, I unknowingly came to the century-old tree I passed before. The old trees are still lush, and the greenery from the branches seems to be dripping down in the next second. The old man and the young man under the tree are still as warm and harmonious as the last time we saw them. Zhang Lingzi paused and said, good morning, old sir. Sumo-kun was about to take his grandson home for breakfast. He turned his head and looked over, nodded lightly, and replied calmly, morning. However, the face of the little guy he was holding looked a little surprised and a little confused. He followed his grandfather and poked his head curiously, pretty sister, why didn't you leave? Did they leave you behind? Zhang Lingzi shook her head and replied seriously, I still have some work to finish, so I have to leave later. Oh, I understand, you, like me, haven't finished the assigned homework yet. Facing the child's eyes that said, we are both connected by the same fate, Zhang Lingzi said, it can be understood that way. Sumo-kun tugged at his grandson. It's a pity that the child who has always been obedient seems to have roots under his feet and refuses to leave. Beautiful sister, you performed beautifully that day. I don't think anyone in the troop performed as well as you. Oh, you went to see it that day too? Yeah, I went with Grandpa, and I applauded you, and my palms turned red. Thank you. Sumo-kun's heart moved when his grandson reminded him. He hesitated for a moment but couldn't help but ask, I think it's quite difficult for you to do tricks with your physique. How did you last for several minutes that day? The old man has a keen eye. Zhang Lingzi didn't expect anyone to ask her about this. She was stunned for a moment before replying, I just used some skills that I can borrow from. There is nothing that cannot be said. Yes, it's rare to see young people master this kind of skill nowadays. Sumo-kun looked at the little girl in front of him for a moment. Well, we are destined to be together. If you are not in a hurry, I can give you a pulse. Fume, Zhang Lingzi didn't expect that she had already met the owner before she came to seek medical treatment. Is the old gentleman's surname Su? Sumo-kun thought that the news that he was cultivating here would be found out by someone who was interested. He frowned and asked, do you know me? Zhang Lingzi nodded and replied calmly, 2 days ago, an aunt at the head of the village saw that I was weak, so she revealed to me that there was an old Chinese medicine doctor from the imperial capital living in their village, and suggested that I go over and have a look. I originally wanted to finish my work. I went to visit again, but I didn't expect to meet Mr. Su twice. Mr. Lau helped me take my pulse. A few minutes later, Zhang Lingzi followed her grandfather and grandson into the elegant courtyard with white walls and grey tiles. There was another person in the courtyard. When they entered, he was taking a plate of steamed buns and putting them on the table in the courtyard. Zhang Lingzi looked up and met a pair of eyes as sharp as blades. With just one glance, she could confirm that this young man who looked like a cook was definitely very skilled, and he had even seen blood. Such a person is preparing breakfast in such a small courtyard and is so guarded against the arrival of strangers. It seems that Mr. Su's identity is not simple. Mr. Su, who is this? I picked up a patient on the way back from practicing Tai Chi. Sumo-kun replied casually, letting go of his grandson's hand. Seeing, you have dinner with Wei Kei first. Girl, come with me. Zhang Lingzi raised her heels and walked past the young man named Wei Kei as if by accident. She noticed that the man's breathing paused suddenly and his whole body became tense for a moment. She really does have extraordinary intuition, even though she already looks so harmless. Wyke, your beautiful sister has entered the house with Grandpa and you still look at me. Why didn't you notice that you are so good before? Before the little guy was about to say the last word, Wei Kei covered his mouth and his red ears trembled slightly. Classmate Su Xingyuan, I remember there is no such person in the village. Any stranger who appears in this village is someone he needs to be wary of. Of course my beautiful sister is not from the village, she is a big star who keeps you from going out, I don't even know why. But didn't everyone from the program team leave today? Only the beautiful sister is left, saying she still has unfinished work. Su Xingyuan said and sighed, this is just as painful as me not finishing my homework. Wyke. He couldn't help but look again at the room where Mr. Su usually used to treat the villagers. A beautiful and fragile star, he agrees. But he had reservations about saying it was harmless. He trusts his intuition. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 25. Chapter 25 Prescription. Zhang Lingzi removed her hand from the pulse pillow. Looking up, he saw the old Mr. Su in front of him frowning slightly and sighing softly. The next second. You young people, just because of your young age, you know how much you can abuse your body. Even if your foundation is not bad at first, it won't be able to withstand it after repeated tossing. You don't take your own body seriously, and you don't seek medical treatment until you feel bad. I want to scold everyone I see. Zhang Lingzi pretended to be obedient and listened to the instructions. What you always said is that the junior knows that he is wrong. Seeing that her attitude was quite good, Sumo-kun softened his tone and said, you need to take good care of your body. Maybe you can drink Chinese medicine. Zhang Lingzi nodded without hesitation, okay. As long as she can take good care of such a body, let alone traditional Chinese medicine, she can drink Coptis chinensis juice as water. Having died once, I believe no one knows better than her how precious the feeling of being alive is. Sumo-kun took out a pen and paper from the drawer, pondered for a moment and then started writing. After a while, he wrote a prescription and handed it over. Zhang Lingzi hurriedly took it with both hands, her eyes passing over the rows of powerful fonts. With just one glance, she was able to determine how skilled Mr. Su was in medical skills, and could even say that he had made great achievements. Although she has never studied medicine, the palace in her previous life gathered the most powerful doctors in the world at that time, as well as the most well-preserved medical books. She knew some basic medical principles under the influence of her ears and eyes, especially the prescriptions for recuperating the body, which she had seen countless times. In addition to not being able to prescribe medicine for herself because of her poor control, she can tell at a glance whether a prescription is good or bad and whether it is suitable for the patient's symptoms. Although the effect of the prescription in her hand is mild, her current body knows that it was weakened little by little due to bad living habits, and it is best to slowly warm it up in this way. Thank you Mr. Su, but I don't know how much your consultation fee is. Sumo-kun wanted to just wave it off and forget it. His medical visit was just a whim, but he thought the rules could not be broken. Then just like other villagers in the village, give me 10 yuan. Zhang Lingzi. Seeing her silence, Sumo-kun raised his white eyebrows and said, what, you didn't bring any money? No, I just think the consultation fee is much cheaper than I thought. Sumo-kun snorted, it's just here in Xiaojing village. You probably won't be able to register with me even if it takes a year and a half to go outside. By the way, the medicinal materials on this prescription shouldn't be easy to buy here. Wait. When you return to a big city, you can go to Hechendang, where the medicinal materials are all available and of good quality. Hechun Hall, okay, I will remember this, Junior. Sumo-kun stood up and waved his hand. Okay, I'm afraid my breakfast will get cold after taking so long. You can go back and forth as you please. I'm going out to eat. Zhang Lingzi followed him out of the house and raised her eyes to meet the gaze of Wei Kei. She nodded slightly in greeting, said goodbye to Mr. Su and the little guy waving to her at the dinner table, and walked out of the yard. When I did, I closed the door smoothly. Only then did Wei Kei look back. As soon as Sumo-kun sat down and picked up his chopsticks, he heard his grandson tell him openly, "Grandpa, Brother Wei has been staring at the beautiful sister." Wei Kei suddenly blushed, and when he met Mr. Su's gaze, he was so panicked that he even forgot to put down his job, and quickly explained, "Mr. Su, you know my job, that girl just now, my gut tells me she's not as harmless as she seems." Sumo-kun took a leisurely sip of porridge, and then said calmly, "Didn't Sing Sing say that girl is a big star? Her name seems to be Zhang Lingzi. You can find out if you take out your phone and search." Like. He really forgot about this. Suddenly, I didn't even care about eating. I took out my phone and started searching. When the entry with the word Zhang Lingzi appeared, the photo of the person that appeared on the phone was indeed the face he just saw, but he almost instinctively felt that it didn't look like it. His facial features clearly looked the same, but those photos of him wearing heavy makeup and staring with his mouth pouting made it impossible for him to connect with the person who just left. Frowning, he continued to scroll down, and when he saw the words "Please Zhang Lingzi leave the entertainment industry, Zhang Lingzi only has one face, I suggest you not make movies in the future, why hasn't this ultimate little artist been hidden away?" As he waited for a series of malicious entries, it was even more difficult for him to imagine that the person being ridiculed so maliciously was the Miss Zhang who had just left. What's going on online? The anger almost came out of the screen. Sumo-kun looked at him frowning and puzzled at the phone for a while. "Why, it wasn't found." "We found it," Wei Kei replied quickly, after a pause. "Ms. Zhang is indeed a star, it's just me who's suspicious. As for the uncomfortable comments I just saw online, it's better not to disturb the elderly's good mood early in the morning." The other side. Zhang Lingzi returned to the small villa with brisk steps. She originally thought about taking a photo of the prescription and sending it to Tong Yu, and asking him to help prepare the ingredients for the prescription, but she decided against it when she was about to take the photo and send it to him. Tong Yu is not Qing Yuan, and will not obey her orders unconditionally. Once the prescription is passed on, Tong Yu will probably have a lot of questions before preparing the medicine. It's better to wait until she returns to the imperial capital to do it herself. After eating the breakfast prepared by Lu Zhengzheng, Zhang Lingzi went back to the bedroom and changed her clothes. As soon as she returned to the living room, she saw Yao Xiaotian outside the door, driving the still dusty van ready to pick them up. "Get in the car and set off, but this time there is one missing, Director Zhao." Over the next 2 days, the three people sat in such a van and visited several villages and towns in Juxi Township, shooting a large amount of material almost non-stop. Even Lu Zhengzheng couldn't help complaining, so much material can be edited into a short film. It can only be considered a small advertisement of a few minutes. The key is that they work so hard for 3 days, and apart from 2 meals a day at noon and evening, they didn't get a dime in compensation. When Yao Xiaotian heard what she said, he only touched his hair and showed a silly smile. What they did was indeed a bit like catching a sheep trying to pull out its wool, but it was a rare opportunity, and it was even rarer to find a star who was willing to cooperate with them and work tirelessly to complete such a series of filming. "Chang Hao wants to treat Teacher Zhang to a meal as a thank you, but I don't know if Teacher Zhang has time." Speaking of the head of Hao Township in Hao Xingzhou, this man is also a very busy man. Except for the first time they met the day before yesterday, John Lingzi saw each other twice in the remaining 2 days. But it was not at the office in Juxi Township, but during the filming. Once I saw this man riding a small electric donkey, with an ant behind him, and a large bag of bamboo shoots placed on the front foot. When I asked about it, I found out that this person had gone to the mountains early in the morning to help nearby villagers carry out a live broadcast of goods. When he came back, he also brought along an aunt who wanted to come to the town to visit her married daughter with spring bamboo shoots. Another time I met him on the road. He was wearing a safety helmet and was installing a windmill with the workers. To sum up, every time we meet, the other person is busy. So she declined politely, "Thank you, Chief Hao, for my kindness. I appreciate it. This meal is not necessary." Yao Xiaotian had no choice but to send him to the door of the small villa as usual. "Then early tomorrow morning, I will drive over to take you two to the high-speed rail station. Teacher John can't refuse anymore, can he?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 26. Chapter 26. Write a word. After dinner, Lu Zhengzheng saw that Zhang Lingzi not only did not go back to the bedroom to rest, but instead brought a bag of bamboo shoots that she had brought back today. "Sister Zixi, are you going out?" "Well, go say goodbye to an elder." She thought that when she left tomorrow morning, she would not have time to run and say goodbye to Mr. Su, so she would go there while everyone had just had dinner and had not yet rested. When you get a prescription from someone, you can't leave without saying hello. She, Zhang Lingzi, can't do this. Lu Zhengzheng only hesitated for a second before making a decisive decision. "Then I'll go with you." As he spoke, he reached out to help carry the bamboo shoots. "I thought you bought spring bamboo shoots from the villagers during the day to take them home and eat them, but it turns out you wanted to give them away. You can't go there empty-handed. No need to lock the door, we'll be back soon." Since Mr. Su had only met 3 times and always looked troubled, Zhang Lingzi believed that even if they passed by this time, they wouldn't stay long. The two of them arrived at the right time. The 3 people in the small courtyard had just finished dinner. Hearing the knock on the door, Wei Kei immediately stood up and opened the door. They have lived in the village for nearly 3 months, and the people in the village have gradually understood Mr. Su's habits. Anyone who can knock on the door at this time must have an urgent condition. But when the door opened and saw the 2 people standing outside, Wei Kei was stunned for a rare moment. Lu Zhengzheng was stunned when he saw a tall and handsome young man opening the door. This. It's late at night, a handsome guy, Sister Zixi, this is. Before she could finish thinking, the voice from beside her brought her thoughts back. Zhang Lingzi stated the purpose of her trip straightforwardly. "Mr. Wei, we will leave the village tomorrow morning and come here to say goodbye to Mr. Su." Wei Kei glanced at the spring bamboo shoots that still smelled fresh and earthy in Zhang Lingzi's hand, opened the door and said, "Please come in. Mr. Su is practicing calligraphy in the study." The 3 of them walked lightly to the door of the study room, and saw an old man and a young man each holding a writing brush under the lamp in the room, concentrating on writing one stroke after another. After waiting for a moment, Su Xingyuan was a little tired from writing. He put down his brush and stretched his wrist. He looked up and saw 3 figures standing outside the door. He suddenly shouted in surprise, "Pretty sister." Lu Zhengzheng looked on and couldn't help but marveled. She still remembered that Sister Zixi had said before that she hated 7 or 8-year-old children the most. Cats hated dogs and they couldn't communicate with them, making it extremely troublesome to get along with them. Unexpectedly, she would have such a young fan without her knowing it. Looking at the unaffected white-haired old man who was still concentrating on writing, She suddenly realized where all her thoughts had gone. The handsome guy next to me is not the person that my sister Zixi wants to say goodbye to. The real owner is obviously this old man. After finishing the last stroke, Sumo Kunshi Shiren stopped writing, picked up the wet towel on the side and wiped his hands, and looked at the door. Are you finished working and ready to leave? Zhang Lingzi replied and walked into the house. I don't have time during the day, so I will come here to say goodbye to you. I brought some freshly dug spring bamboo shoots that I bought from the villagers for you to try. Sumo Kun said in a slightly gentle tone, you are interested. Pretty sister, sit down. Su Xinyuan took the water that Wei Kei had just poured and handed it over. He looked back at the large characters that he had not finished writing. His little face was full of worry. My beautiful sister has finished her homework. When will my homework be finished? Zhang Lingzi sipped her saliva and said, are you writing big characters? Yeah, Su Xinyuan nodded and stretched out 3 fingers, at least 3 every day. It was obvious that he was very reluctant, but he was also sensible enough not to refute the arrangement of his elders. Unexpectedly, Zhang Lingzi said next, that's not much. Su Xingyuan's mouth opened wide, ah. Not much. At least 10 pictures a day when I was a child. This is still the amount set by the teacher who teaches them calligraphy, but in fact, all the brothers and sisters are chasing each other and are not willing to be outdone. They practice calligraphy often more than 10 times a day. Even though he was fighting everywhere later, his habit of practicing calligraphy never changed. Su Xinyuan closed his open mouth, with a look of disbelief on his face. Then you have to write all the time except eating and sleeping to finish writing. It will be much faster if you focus more and you will have time to do other things. Su Xinyuan felt a little ashamed when he thought that he would stop and take a rest whenever he felt his wrist was a little sore, thus wasting a lot of time. So he decisively changed the subject. Pretty sister, do you want to read my handwriting? This is also a specialty that he is proud to show off among his peers. Zhang Lingzi saw the expectation in the little guy's eyes, put down the cup and followed Su Xinyuan to the table, her eyes falling on the large characters whose ink had not yet completely dried. After looking at it quietly for a moment, I saw the little guy's face begging for praise. After a while, I chose to tell the truth. I could write better than this when I was 3 years old. Su Xingyuan's face suddenly seemed to be covered with a mask of pain, and then it cracked. Really, I don't believe it. Zhang Lingzi spread her hands towards him. In her previous life in the palace, Qingyuan carefully preserved some calligraphy she had practiced when she was a child, but the reality is that she can't prove it now. Sumo Kun suddenly laughed out loud. I have to give you a hard blow, you brat. You can write some calligraphy and then you can't do it, he said, taking an unused brush from the pen holder on the side, and handed it to Zhang Lingzi. Girl, write a word for this brat to read and let him know that there are people out there who are better than others, and he will not dare to be proud after reading this. Zhang Lingzi looked at the little guy who was still a little unconvinced, then looked at the brush handed to him, and reached out to take it from Shan Ruliu. Then I will bully the little one. Laying out a blank piece of paper, she rolled up her sleeves and dipped her pen in ink. As soon as this action came out, Sumo Kun's expression became condensed. You can see the way to do anything if you look carefully, and the same goes for writing. Just by looking at the movements of lifting and holding the pen, you can tell at a glance whether the other person really knows it or is pretending to know it. Although he was a little angry that his grandson was a little impetuous when practicing calligraphy, he still felt a little unhappy when he heard Zhang Lingzi say that her handwriting when she was 3 years old was comparable to her grandson's calligraphy when he was 7 years old. That's it for adults. You can say something bad about your child, but you can't listen to others saying something bad about your child. That's why I asked Zhang Lingzi to write a calligraphy for her grandson to read. Firstly, I wanted to suppress my child's impetuosity. Secondly, it was also to test Zhang Lingzi's ability in calligraphy practice. Ink falls on the paper, and the pen moves like a dragon or a snake. Zhang Lingzi did not choose characters with overly complicated structures. It seemed that only a moment had passed since he started writing. On the snow-white rice paper, there was an additional word yin, which was yin from the Yin dynasty. Su Mo-kun couldn't help but take a breath. After a moment of silence, he subconsciously reached out and touched the head of his stunned grandson. Good. It's more than just good. The power penetrates the back of the paper, and it is domineering and restrained. Had he not seen Zhang Lingzi write such a word with his own eyes, he would never have thought that the person who could write this word was a girl in her early 20s. Even he himself didn't dare to say that he could write with such momentum. Su Xinyuan was also convinced at this moment. He has been influenced by it since he was a child. He can naturally tell whether the handwriting is good or not, especially when comparing the word yin with his own handwriting. Well, there is no comparison. Beautiful sister, can you give me this word? He wanted Wei Kei to help frame it and hang it on the wall to encourage him not to be lazy anymore. Then consider this a parting gift to you. Thank you, beautiful sister. After Zhang Lingzi took Lu Zhengzheng to say goodbye, Su Mo-kun picked up the piece of paper with yin written on it and looked at it carefully for a while, then shared with Wei Kei, who walked up to him and followed him to admire. This girl, there is only one person I know who can match her writing skills, but that person is more reserved and elegant. She seems to be quite polite and steady, but she is quite domineering on the inside. Su Xinyuan jumped to the side. Grandpa, this is a gift from my beautiful sister. I don't want to compete with you, but little Zhang girl said that she practiced calligraphy at least 10 times a day when she was a child. I think the tasks assigned to you are still too few. How about increasing it to 10 in the future? Su Xinyuan. He looked at Wei Kei for help. Brother Wei, am I shooting myself in the foot? Wei Kei looked away from the words and nodded seriously to Su Xinyuan. Why doesn't it count? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 27. Chapter 27. The Mysterious Man. Su Xinyuan cried out because of the sudden increase in calligraphy practice. Zhang Lingzi walked too fast and was destined to not hear it. But the sound of exclamation from Lu Zhengzheng could not be avoided in my ears. Sister Zixi, this is the first time I know you can write calligraphy, and you can write so well. I don't know what to say, I just think it's good. I think that Mr. Su just now was also stunned by what you wrote. But why did you write the word yin? It feels a bit unfamiliar. Zhang Lingzi listened to the chattering all the way, and when she returned to the small villa, she finally found the opportunity to interrupt Lu Zhengzheng. There is nothing to say, I just wrote it when I thought of it. Okay, you are not tired after walking for a day, so go back to the house and sleep. Her ears will get calluses if she keeps talking. Why didn't you think this girl was so eloquent before? Or is it because she has such a good temper during this time? When Lu Zhengzheng subconsciously returned to the room, she realized that Sister Zixi had answered her 2 questions. It's just that there's nothing good to say about being able to calligraphy with calligraphy. If those celebrities in the industry could use good-looking calligraphy, they would have gone to major platforms to show off their calligraphy works, so as to receive a wave of praise from fans. By the way, create a literary and artistic setting. Sister Zixi didn't think this was a big plus. Thinking of this, Lu Zhengzheng inexplicably felt that the burden on his shoulders was getting heavier. She is following Sister Zixi, and she must help Sister Zixi find extra points for becoming a star in the future, so that those black fans who always mock Sister Zixi for having only one face and no other redeeming qualities will slap themselves in the face. Holding such a heavy burden, Lu Zhengzheng fell asleep with great expectation. The bedroom next door. Zhang Lingzi was leaning on the bedside and watching the replay of today's news. Ever since she accidentally learned about the program News Now, she basically never misses it every day. Before going to bed at night, I always have to look at my mobile phone for an hour before falling asleep. You can know the major events in the world without leaving home. This is exactly what she dreamed of in her previous life. In addition, the memories she received before were basically only in the entertainment industry. Reading the news in the past few days has given her a clearer understanding of today's world. The news replay ended, Zhang Lingzi covered her mouth and yawned, preparing to turn off the screen and sleep. At this moment, a piece of entertainment news was suddenly pushed on the mobile phone. The title is explosive and exaggerated, enough to catch people's attention. The popular mysterious man at Ziyahua Jiangziu Hotel's nightclub, his pure character may be about to collapse. 3 exclamation marks show his shock. When Zhang Lingzi saw similar news, she would be curious to open it and take a look, but since she heard from Tong Yu and Lu Zhengzheng, this kind of news is usually just a gimmick to catch people's attention and gain views. In fact, the truth is if one of the 10 is true, it's already good, so she doesn't pay much attention to this kind of news. But this time before exiting, she couldn't help but take one more look at the face in the photo below the title. It can be seen at a glance that the photo was taken secretly. It was a bit far away and a bit blurry, but the angle was quite good, and it was able to capture 3/4 of Zhang Ziu's profile. As for that face, Zhang Lingzi subconsciously touched her chin, it was actually somewhat similar to hers. She still remembered that when she first woke up in this world, she heard Tong Yu say little Zhang Lingzi, and she debuted under a name that looked like the original one, and her fame once surpassed that of the original one. If nothing unexpected happens, it seems to be this girl named Zhang Ziu. Because of this, Zhang Lingzi patiently flipped through the pages. I turned the page until the end, and then I saw a paragraph of graphic content that was quite substantial. It is about the identity of the mysterious man. It's just that the photo only captured the back of the man after he got out of the car, not even a trace of his face, as well as half of the body of the luxury car, and the license plate number was also hidden. It was simply a lonely picture. Looking at the additional text at the end, it seems that the author has not been able to find any information about the mysterious man. He is indeed mysterious enough. Before he was about to exit the news page, Zhang Lingzi accidentally clicked on the photo of only the man's back and half of the luxury car, and then zoomed in a little. The man is tall, and his aura is strong enough just by looking at his back. But she was not familiar with any of these, mainly the half of the luxury cars in the photo, which she always felt a little familiar with. While thinking, she unknowingly came across the comments from netizens who, like her, were still checking their phones at night. Zhang Ziu's first movie has just finished filming, and a piece of news like this came out not surprisingly, it must have been released to the public. Blind guessing about Zhang Lingzi, who gave Zhang Ziu the title of Little Zhang Lingzi, seeing that Zhang Ziu's fame is almost eclipsing her own, can Zhang Lingzi bear it? Zhang Lingzi is really bad at what he does. He stepped on the first place and got down. But it's understandable. A person who gets into the industry by relying on his own reputation will have to ride on his own head. I can't bear it. If Zhang Lingzi had a better personality and stopped being a monster all day long and honed her acting skills, she wouldn't be like this. Forget about the person upstairs. Have you seen the last photo, the mysterious man mentioned by the author? The back of the man is so disturbing to me. I just want to ask the author why he didn't even show his face. Zhang Lingzi did not continue to scroll through the following comments. She silently turned off her phone, thinking that curiosity killed the cat. The people on the internet are really messed up. She should just go to sleep. Asterisk. Early the next morning. The van, which had rarely been simply cleaned, was parked in front of the high-speed rail station. Zhang Lingzi put on her mask and hat and got out of the car. Lu Zhengzheng took the suitcase that Yao Xiaotian helped take down. There is always a shortage of passengers coming and going at the high-speed rail station. Yao Xiaotian also wanted to send the two of them into the station, but Zhang Lingzi refused. She has not yet been able to live without taking care of herself to this extent. Before leaving, Yao Xiaotian gritted his teeth and tugged on Lu Zhenzhen's sleeve. Lu Zhenzhen looked over in surprise. What's wrong, brother Xiaotian? That's right, Yao Xiaotian glanced at Zhang Lingzi, who was standing not far in front, and lowered his voice. Does your artist have any fan base? Lu Zhenzhen, that's it? Yes, yes, let me pull you in. Thanks. You're welcome, Sister Zixi has gained another fan, I have to thank you. Zhang Lingzi was looking at the travelers coming and going through her sunglasses. She heard the footsteps behind her and looked back. She waved to Yao Xiaotian, who was about to get in the car and leave. She took a bag from Lu Zhenzhen's hand and said, let's go. After passing the security check and sitting on the lounge chair in the waiting room, Lu Zhenzhen held up the phone in front of Zhang Lingzi and whispered, Sister Zixi, look, you have a new fan. Zhang Lingzi looked at the screen of her mobile phone. 6 groups of streams. Is there a number of people behind them? The first 5 groups are all full. This group was just established last month, so there are a few people. Sister Zixi, look, this is brother Xiaotian who just came in. See, how many people are there in the crowd? We are a super large group, and one group can accommodate up to 10,000 people. Sister Zixi, even though you have a lot of negative fans, you actually have a lot of loyal fans. But there was one thing she didn't say. Except for Yao Xiaotian, who just joined, the other fans were basically Yan fans. As for career fans, they don't exist. For Sister Zixi's fans, they only need to look at her face. What an objective and somewhat depressing reality. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 28. Chapter 28, What is it like to eat melon on yourself? The plane landed, and there was a sudden noise in my ears. When we were leaving, another celebrity leaked the itinerary, and the airport pickup area was almost occupied by fans holding all kinds of gifts. When they finally saw Tongyu and the driver who came to pick them up, even Zhang Lingzi couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. She has seen the madness of these celebrity fans this time. When Tongyu saw Zhang Lingzi, her worries were relieved. As she led the two of them out, she said, I just learned that your 2 flights collided with members of the Fangxing girl group. Fortunately, we are low-key enough. Lu Zhenzhen looked astonished. Sister Tong, why did you come to pick up Sister Zixi in person? It turns out you were worried about this. Don't worry, I'm here. Tongyu patted her shoulder and glanced at Zhang Lingzi without wanting to speak. Zhang Lingzi noticed it and guessed that the collision with the flight was just one of the reasons why the other party came to pick her up. There was a more important reason that was not mentioned. She was not in a hurry to ask. She didn't speak until she got into the car. What does Sister Tong want to say to me? You can see it. Tongyu was shocked by Zhang Lingzi's keenness, and took out her mobile phone from her bag, stretched out her hand and clicked a few times. You better see for yourself. Zhang Lingzi took the phone and glanced down at a familiar photo. She was silent for a moment. I saw this news last night before going to bed. Except for someone mentioning me in the comment section, it probably has nothing to do with me. Did you get it? Tongyu couldn't help raising her eyebrows, and her tone of voice couldn't help but rise a little. Didn't you see the photo at the bottom? Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows in surprise at Tongyu's reaction. That photo of the mysterious man's back and the luxury car? I saw it, but what does it have to do with me? Tongyu. She held her forehead with her hand, closed her eyes for a while, and then asked with her last hope, don't you think that the back and the luxury car are a bit familiar? Just as Zhang Lingzi was about to speak, Lu Zhenzhen, who couldn't help but be curious, boldly leaned his little head over. When he saw the news on the phone screen, he exclaimed, why is this Zhang Ziyu again? Is she Yin Yangzi again, Sister 11? As he spoke, he even stretched out his hand to pull it up. Swiping all the way to the end, the picture on the phone screen was fixed on the back of the mysterious man and half of the luxury cars in the corner. As he looked at it, he suddenly hissed. But the carriage was quiet at the moment, and the hissing made both Zhang Lingzi and Tong Yu look over. Facing the gazes of the two big guys, Lu Zhengzheng swallowed dryly and said, "Well, Sister Zixi, we have seen this car before." Just as Zhang Lingzi was about to ask where it was, a picture suddenly flashed in her mind. Comparing the photos on the phone again, Zhu Zixiang. Lu Zhengzheng nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Although I only photographed a corner of the car body, I'm usually interested in all kinds of cars, so I'm sure I won't get it wrong. This car is already rare, and it may not be better than it in the entire imperial capital 3 cars, no doubt they are the same one. But how could the owner of this luxury car fall in love with Zhang Ziyu and have a night party in the hotel so boldly? As soon as she finished complaining, she felt a chill on the top of her head. Looking up, she saw Sister Tong looking at her coldly. "Tong, Sister Tong, did I say something wrong?" Tong Yu took a breath. "Shut up." After saying that, he looked at Zhang Lingzi. "The Juxi township you are talking about is the place where the promotional videos were filmed these 2 days. Did you see this car there?" "Car? Only the car?" Zhang Lingzi nodded. "I saw it at an intersection. I didn't pay much attention to it. If Zheng hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have thought of it. But according to Sister Tong, could the owner of this car have anything to do with me?" Origin. Tong Yu's question just now made her doubtful. As soon as she asked this question, she saw a somewhat puzzling expression on Tong Yu's face. The two looked at each other for a moment, and Tong Yu wiped her face and retreated first. "This is actually the right thing for me to ask you. Although I haven't met Mr. Shen a few times, I saw him getting into a car by chance. The car, no doubt, this car should be his. Plus, the back view on the phone really makes me think more about it," she said with a more sighing tone, and a bit of disbelief. "You didn't even recognize the car or the person, you recognized her as an outsider, but Zhang Lingzi, an insider, is not as good as her. What a big deal. Zhang Lingzi." She had seen a popular phrase on the internet before, which was called eating melon and eating it on yourself. When I watched it, I never imagined that I would experience it again. I'm not familiar with him. Tong Yu. She nodded tiredly. "I can tell. When I got my phone back, I helped Lu Zhengzheng close her mouth that had been opened unconsciously." Lu Zhengzheng rubbed her sore cheeks and looked at Sister Tong and then at Sister Zixi with her big eyes, feeling a little dreamy. "The luxury car I saw in Juxi Township was actually the car of Sister Zixi's husband. The mysterious man who was revealed to have had a late-night hotel night party with Zhang Ziyu is actually Sister Zixi's husband." The food almost made her vomit. But thinking of the figure she had glimpsed in the hospital before, she shook her head reflexively and said firmly, "Sister Zixi, this news must be based on rumors and deliberately create topics. Mr. Shen is definitely not this kind of person. Besides, there is a wife like you, Sister Zixi, who is so beautiful. No matter how much Zhang Ziyu tries to fix her, she can't bring out your natural beauty. Why would Mr. Shen leave a decent wife like you here to find a fake, woolen cloth?" After finishing speaking, she nodded, thinking that her analysis was in place. "Yes, that's it. The author who published this news is simply a cancer in the industry." Zhang Lingzi wasn't angry at first. After all, the other person on the marriage certificate was a real stranger to her. But he was still amused by Lu Zhengzhen's indignant appearance. "Yes, the analysis is quite good. That's right, so Sister Zixi, please don't think too much about it." "I didn't think much about it." Tong Yu looked at the two of them from the side and changed the topic with each other. In the end, they even talked about what they would have for dinner later. She suddenly felt that her worries this day were in vain. After discussing what to have for dinner later, Zhang Lingzi turned to look at Tong Yu, Sister Tong. Huh? I won't eat with you. I came to pick you up just to tell you about the news so that you can be mentally prepared. I will go home for dinner later. I will solve this matter myself, Sister Tong, don't worry. Tong Yu was stunned for 2 seconds before she realized what Zhang Lingzi was talking about. How do you plan to solve it? I'll have a frank talk with him. Even though she was her husband in name only, and in the memories she received, he never interfered with anything about her, she still hated the feeling of not being able to control everything. She didn't have time before, but now that she's back, she has to see Shen Yunqing no matter what, to see what the man's intentions were when he chose to marry her. Tong Yu nodded. Anyway, this is a matter between you and your wife. As long as it doesn't delay your work, I won't bother you at all. Mainly because she didn't dare to ask. Okay, don't worry, Sister Tong. Tong Yu only nodded this time. In this matter, she couldn't do anything even if she was worried. The car was parked in the parking lot of the community. Zhang Lingzi and Lu Zhengzheng had just taken down the luggage from the trunk when their mobile phones rang in their pockets. Looking at the note mom on the caller ID, Zhang Lingzi paused with her fingers. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 29. Chapter 29. A Call from Home. Lu Zhengzheng was pushing the suitcase forward. As he was walking, he heard a hesitant mom from behind him. Her steps suddenly stopped, and she looked back nervously. Zhang Lingzi lowered her eyes to answer the phone and did not see Lu Zhengzheng's emotional change at this moment. After she hesitantly called out Mom, the person on the other side of the phone said cautiously, Zixi, have you been busy lately? It's okay. Zhang Lingzi paused after replying, how are you doing there? It's all good here and here, everything is fine, you don't have to worry, just work hard. A few seconds of silence followed. A more cautious voice came from the other side again, Zixi, tomorrow is the monthly visitation day of the Juvenile Detention Center. Do you want to come with us to see your brother? Zhang Lingzi could even tell that the woman over there held her breath after asking this question, as if she was afraid of missing her next reply. Good. The voice coming from the phone suddenly became excited. Well, then come over here early tomorrow morning, and let's set off together. Good. The voice returned to being cautious again. Then you have a good rest, don't always think about losing weight and skipping dinner, it is not good for your stomach. Before she finished her words of instruction, Zhang Lingzi heard another hoarse man's voice coming from the phone. Are you talking to Zixi on the phone? Zhang Wenhui nodded towards her husband, unable to restrain her joy, and said, just now Zixi said that she would go with us to see Xiaoxu tomorrow. I won't go see that brat. He keeps a straight face with me every time. You two can go tomorrow, but I won't go. Seeing that her husband was about to walk towards the door, Zhang Wenhui quickly stopped him. It's almost time for dinner, why are you going? Go out and talk to Lao Lu about the recent market conditions. Zhang Runchinj, don't you try to be careless with me and go drinking again, right? You should stop worrying about what happens at the men's dinner table. Go away. Go to bed early at night and don't wait for me to come back. Accompanied by an angry slamming of the door, Zhang Wenhui's muttering to himself sounded on the phone, I said that business is unreliable, why don't you believe it? Drink, drink, why don't you drink? The following words stopped abruptly, then there was a sound of moving back and forth. Zhang Lingzi guessed that she might have forgotten that the call with her daughter was still on, so she hung up the phone silently. Looking up, he met Lu Zhengzheng's nervous and worried eyes. Why do you look at me like that? Lu Zhengzheng let go of the suitcase in his hand and trotted up to Zhang Lingzi, Sister Zixi, you Do you still have dinner? To be precise, are you still in the mood for dinner? Zhang Lingzi was confused by the question and nodded, of course I want to eat. Lu Zhengzheng breathed a sigh of relief and said, that's good, she didn't need to order takeout or go out to eat alone. The two of them entered the elevator together. Why did you suddenly ask me if I wanted to have dinner? Lu Zhengzheng lowered her head and whispered back, Sister Zixi, every time you received a call from home, your mood would become very bad, and sometimes it would last for several days. I just heard you shouting when you answered the phone, hey mom, I'm just a little worried. Zhang Lingzi raised her hand and patted her shoulder lightly, it won't happen again in the future, don't worry. After arriving home, Lu Zhengzheng put down her luggage and went into the kitchen to work in the kitchen. After Zhang Lingzi asked her if she wanted to help, she poured herself a glass of water and went to sit on the lounge chair on the balcony. After drinking the water, she frowned and thought deeply. The original person didn't leave her with many memories about her family, just a little more than that of Shen Yunqing. She could feel that the original person was deliberately avoiding and neglecting her family. There is naturally a reason for this. 3 years ago, my father, Zhang Runqinj, went bankrupt in business and still owed a lot of debt. The family also moved from a spacious villa to an old and small residential area. This is not over yet. Because the debts cannot be repaid, debt collectors come to the house. Some of them go too far and cannot get money, and even smash them wantonly in order to vent their anger. The original brother was only a 15-year-old boy at that time. He was young and energetic, and he couldn't get angry at the arrogance and domineering of the leader, so he impulsively stabbed the leader. The person who was stabbed immediately called the police. Although Zhang Lingxiu did not have to go to jail because he was underage, he was sent to a juvenile detention center for education. It has been almost 3 years now. After that, the original father still wanted to make a comeback, but there were too few examples of people who could withstand the earth-shaking life gap and successfully make a comeback, and he was not one of them. Over time, because I was depressed all the time, I became addicted to alcoholism. I would get drunk all day long before going home. The original mother, Zhang Wenhui, used to be a full-time wife who had a respectful beauty. Now that her husband is drinking, her son is closed, and she has to go out to find a job and maintain the livelihood of the family. Talking about the original body just entered college 3 years ago. Due to the drastic changes in her family, she had no choice but to give up her studies. By chance, she joined the entertainment industry. After earning money with her good looks and easing the burden on her family, she stayed. Come down. But in his heart, he still had some resentment towards his family members. It can only be said that changes never give people a chance to prepare. The originally happy family of 4 has fallen into pieces and is no longer as warm as before. Looking back quietly at the original person's short life of more than 20 years, Zhang Lingzi felt that she somewhat understood why the original person developed such a dog-like temper that everyone disliked. The entertainment industry is a vanity fair, and it is a place without much privacy. I have such a terrible family, and I feel a little inferior to myself. But the entertainment industry is a place where people are not allowed to feel inferior, and it is even harder to hide their inferiority. Coupled with the forced interruption of studies 3 years ago. These hurdles are really not easy to overcome for a little girl who grew up carefree in this era. Only she herself can know how many setbacks and difficulties she has experienced. Sister Zixi, the food is ready, come and eat. Lu Zhengzhen's cheerful shout came from behind. Zhang Lingzi came back from her thoughts and raised her eyes to look at the flashing neon outside the glass window. Think of something someone often said, everything will be fine. Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi stood outside the old residential area. Today is a working day, and it is the peak time for work and school. The surging flow of people in the residential area almost knocked off her sunglasses. When there were fewer people coming out, she crossed the small pool of water left on the potholes due to the rain last night and walked into the residential area. 303, that's it? Looking at the anti-theft door with its mottled paint in front of her and the traces of red paint that had been splashed on it in the past, John Lindsay took out the keys she had found out in her pocket before going out in the morning and opened the door with some unfamiliarity. Before I entered, an indescribable smell rushed towards me, and even wearing a mask could not block it out. This caused her to pause as she originally planned to step in. Zhang Wenhui was busy mopping the floor in the small living room. When she heard the door open, she quickly raised her head and looked towards the door. When she saw that it was her daughter, a smile appeared on her face, but it soon turned into embarrassment and pettiness. "Zixi came here so early. Please stand at the door first. The smell in the room is a bit bad. Wait for me to spray some air freshener before you come in." Zhang Lingzi took off her sunglasses and mask and entered the house. After entering the living room, she turned to look at the crack of the bedroom door that was ajar. She heard snoring coming from inside. "Dad is still asleep." Zhang Wenhui didn't see the disgust on her daughter's face, and she just felt warm. When she heard these words, she couldn't help but darken her face, and complained in a low voice, "I came back at midnight last night, and I was so drunk that I vomited all over the floor. I closed the bedroom door before going to bed. He was so drunk that he didn't even know how to open the door. I happened to pack your brother's things last night and forgot to close the door, so he went to your brother's room to sleep. He couldn't do it in the morning. Wake up. Forget it, we don't need to worry about him, just the two of us will go there today. Anyway, they get very nervous every time they meet, so it's better not to go." Zhang Lingzi was silent for a moment. "Have you eaten yet?" End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 30. Chapter 30 Visiting Zhang Lingxiu. At the breakfast shop opposite the community. Zhang Lingzi took the tofu now brought by the landlady and put it in Zhang Wenhui's hand. Remembering that mother and daughter both loved sweets in her original memory, she took another spoonful of sugar from the sugar bowl on the table and put it into the tofu now. Zhang Wenhui pinched the scallion pancake in her hand and couldn't help sniffing as she watched her daughter's movements. Zhang Lingzi put the sugar bowl back to its original place, raised her eyes and met her red eyes. "Zixi, we two have not had a meal together like this for a long time." Zhang Lingzi was silent when he heard this. Jobs in the entertainment industry are not fixed in nature. As long as there is work, others still need to be busy during their weekends and holidays. In addition, the original person deliberately avoided this home that made her feel depressed and uncomfortable. Looking back, the memories left by the original person did not include the time of eating together as a family. The daughter does not come home, the son cannot come home, and the husband is an alcoholic and has a bad temper. He still refuses to accept the reality of his bankruptcy. The mother in front of her experienced no less pressure than the original mother. "You have been tired in the past few years." Zhang Wenhui could no longer hold back tears. She didn't even know that she had been waiting for such a simple sentence. After finishing a hearty breakfast with tears in her eyes, Zhang Wenhui burped and took the tissue handed to her to wipe her face. Then she tentatively asked in a low voice, "Zixi, you and Mr. Shen, what are you doing now?" She got stuck as she spoke, and really didn't know how to ask her daughter. Mr. Shen showed up when the family was at a loss and solved the family's debts. The only requirement was to marry his daughter. She felt that it was not good to be so hasty, but after her husband went out and asked about Shen's name, he directly made the decision and nodded. Later, her daughter also acquiesced to the matter, and it didn't matter what opinions she had. But this is a major matter in marriage. Although she intuitively felt that something was not right about her daughter and son-in-law's sudden marriage, her daughter was not coming home and her son-in-law was very busy. Even if she wanted to know more about it, she had no chance and could only pretend. Confused. Until she finally waited until her daughter was willing to come back to see her, she dared to ask tentatively. Zhang Lingzi was not ready to say outright that this marriage was in name only, so she thought about it and replied, "It's okay. We have always been in peace with each other and no one is talking to us, so that's fine. It would be troublesome if you really have feelings." However, Zhang Wenhui obviously misunderstood. She only thought that her daughter meant that the couple got along well, so she immediately felt relieved and said, "That's good, that's good. You two are doing well, so I'm relieved." Just as the car that had been arranged in advance arrived, Zhang Lingzi changed the subject. There was really nothing to talk about between her and Mr. Shen. If Zhang Wenhui continued to ask, she would have no chance of revealing her secret. The mother and daughter got into the car and were somewhat silent on the way to the juvenile detention center. From the age of 15 to 18, everyone knows that these are the most precious 3 years in a person's life. Ordinary boys at this age are either sitting in spacious and bright classrooms, or they are playing ball on the playground and looking cool. They may even meet a girl they like and have a young love affair. In short, it will be extremely colorful. But from the age of 15 to 18, Zhang Lingxiu was locked in a small space with no freedom. His body was imprisoned, and even his soul was imprisoned together. Although Zhang Wenhui was happy to be able to see her son in person, she couldn't help but feel heartbroken when she thought about where they would meet later. Even if his daughter is sitting next to him this time, he has no intention of chatting anymore. Zhang Lingzi could understand her mood. After learning that there were places like juvenile detention centers more than 1,000 years later, she connected with the Qinjiewen she founded. Qinjiewen was also used to imprison some young people who got into trouble at a young age, but at that time it was only the children of some courtiers' families, and it did not involve ordinary people. The main reason is that the population is so large that no matter how much energy she has, she cannot control it and can only control a small number of people she can see. In her opinion, this juvenile detention center should be regarded as a modern version of Qinjiewen. The car stopped at the entrance of the juvenile detention center. The mother and daughter got out of the car with the things they brought. After entering, they took out their ID cards to register. The things they brought were carefully checked to make sure there were no dangerous items before they were labeled. Put them in the item area and they will be sent to the recipients one by one. Afterwards, I was taken to the waiting room in the visiting area. Since it was a visiting day, they also saw many parents who also came to visit their children. The faces of these parents had the same expression as Zhang Wenhui's, a mix of anticipation and excitement, but the atmosphere in the entire waiting room was dull and silent. It's very complicated, but also very empathetic to each other. After waiting for almost a quarter of an hour, someone shouted at the door, "Are Zhang Lingxiu's parents here?" Zhang Wenhui quickly raised her hand and said, "Here you are." After saying that, she stood up and walked towards the door. Zhang Lingzi stood up and followed. 03 visiting room, half an hour of visiting time, hurry up. Thank you, Zhang Wenhui thanked her profusely. She turned around and saw her daughter following her, leading the way to the door of the 03 visiting room. After reaching the door, he took a deep breath, then opened the door and walked in. Zhang Lingzi followed in and took a look at the environment in the visiting room. The room is not big, but it is divided into two spaces by a glass wall. The visitors and the visited can only communicate through small holes in the glass, and cannot even shake hands. There were chairs on both sides of the glass wall, and two were thoughtfully placed near her and Zhang Wenhui. Zhang Lingzi followed Zhang Wenhui and took a seat, looking at the young man opposite the glass wall who was hanging his head with only a straight nose showing his expression. The shaved head is very round, but the person is also very thin, and the thin clothes reveal the shape of the spine. Seeing that he didn't raise his head, Zhang Wenhui couldn't help but reach out and knock on the glass in front of her, and cautiously shouted, "Xiaosu! Xiaosu, look up, your mother is here to see you, and your sister also left work and came here specially this time." Zhang Lingzi saw the young man's back stiffen suddenly, and then he raised his head and looked this way, with disbelief in his eyes. Zhang Lingzi. She finally saw the boy's face clearly and why he had lowered his head just now. Her beauty can be said to be the best in the entertainment industry. Born to the same father and mother, Zhang Lingxiu's appearance is naturally not bad. The young man has his own clear and stubborn handsomeness, which is not inferior to those of the school idols whom she is favored for. But the fresh-looking scars on one side of the bridge of the nose and at the corners of the eyes ruined this beauty. Zhang Wenhui's eyes suddenly turned red. Why did you get that look on your face? Did you get into a fight with someone? Zhang Lingxiu subconsciously raised his hand to cover the wounds on his face, but accidentally exposed the wounds on the knuckles of his fingers. Seeing that his mother's eyes were already filled with tears, he simply gave up on himself. I just had a little friction with someone in my dormitory. The injury is not serious. It will be fine in 2 days. Mom, please stop crying, okay? Zhang Wenhui quickly lowered her head and wiped her eyes, then just calm down and don't make me worry. Mom has done the math, 3 years will be up soon, and we will be out soon. Zhang Lingxiu pursed his lips, a hint of mockery flashed in his eyes. So what if he goes out? He will have to carry this case with him for the rest of his life. In the future, whether he is in school or at work, it will be used to evaluate him as a person. Zhang Wenhui was wiping her tears and didn't see this expression, but Zhang Lingzi caught it. Children think quite far. Zhang Lingxiu met his sister's gaze, looked startled, and tilted his head in a covered manner. After being awkward for a moment, he asked in a low voice, "Why are you here? Are you out of work?" End of this chapter.